Good morning, professional photographers of Idaho and beyond. My name is Bob Ryder.
And I am also Bob Ryder.
Welcome, son.
Welcome, Dad.
Good morning, sir.
How are you doing?
I am so excited to have you here today.
I'm excited to be here.
You've been with us here since about a week now.
Yep, since Thanksgiving Day.
Since Thanksgiving evening, right?
Yep.
You live in that western state that shall not be named.
That one.
That one. And you have an interesting career and an interesting background in education.
Yes, I do.
And before we get to all of that today, I need to give these folks some announcements and tell them a few things about what's coming up.
All right.
And normally today we would have our First Friday luncheon, which is just a time for our people to come together, eat some food. And it's kind of a no-host thing. We all get pizza or whatever and sit and chat for about an hour. We're going to push that to next week. So let me get that slide up for these folks. I need to turn that music off, and then we'll push a slide over there for the 10th. That's the one I need right there. Jen Alvey was kind enough. Jen Alvey is our president of our association.
All righty.
So we are professional photographers of Idaho, as we've talked about. And Jennifer Alvey's our president. I am the secretary currently. And we've got a few other people that run behind the scenes. Sam Marvin and Kim Minter and Larry Fry are our board members. I'm half telling them, half telling you.
Yep.
Some of these folks know. But anyway, most of our board couldn't make today's meeting. I'm going to pop that off the screen. You know, it's going to be next Friday, and we're going to be at our usual haunt, the Idaho Pizza Company, at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. It'll be after our live, so we'll be talking about it again next week. I think, Bob Quick, you were on this morning on our Facebook page when Jennifer pushed a graphic similar to this live. Just to know, Bob Quick lives, probably he's our farthest out member that comes to our luncheons. He lives just over the border into Oregon, a little town called Nissa. So we are not meeting today for lunch. We're going to meet next week. Did I say that enough? I mean, is that clear?
I'm pretty sure that's clear.
We are not having lunch as an association today.
December 10th.
December 10th.
Next week.
Next week. At?
The Idaho Pizza Company.
Idaho Pizza Company. That's
in Idaho.
Excellent. Right here in Meridian. It's actually the Idaho Pizza Company on Fairview in Meridian. And it's super easy to find. It's just kind of between Meridian and Locust Grove. But anyway, next Friday, December 10th, we're going to do our first Friday luncheon.
Second Friday luncheon.
It is second Friday this month. The other announcement that I've got for you, this is our save the date announcement for our convention coming up in April. This is your Professional Photographers of Idaho annual convention. It's our biggest event of the year.
That's exciting.
We are doing, we've added an extra day this year, so we're typically a Friday, Saturday, Sunday to Sunday evening kind of deal. And I think this coming April, wowzers, this coming April, we're going to do a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, ending about noontime. Instead of going all the way into Sunday evening. A lot of us are headed off into the work year next year, and so we're wanting to wrap a little earlier. So anyway, those are my announcements. So the save the date is for April 7th through the 10th. And there may be a pre-con class offered before that. We're still working on some of those fun details. But largely, it's going to be, it's going to be the things that We're going to do image competition. We've got some great instructors that we're talking to about coming in and both in-person instruction and hopefully some virtual instructors as well.
Awesome.
We did that for the first time this year, back at the beginning of the year, and the hybrid in-person virtual concept, it was challenging. It had its technology challenges. We've added a lot of equipment to help navigate that this coming year. And I've gained a whole nother year's expertise in doing it. But we're excited to have the opportunity to bring some of those speakers in virtually. Is that the dog? Nope, that's my little boy. Come here, man. This is like Family Friday. You're going to meet the kids. You got to stand up, climb up on the stool with Babo or something. The Ada County kids are out of school today. So here is my minion. You want to tell him your name? Jacob. Jacob Ryder. And who's he? Who's the big guy?
Bob.
Bob. And who's your dad?
Bob.
Bob.
Yep.
Confusing, huh?
Bob Ryder. Bob Ryder.
Yep. All right. Be gone. Love ya. Thanks for that. Always wetter than I expect.
Yeah.
All right, so that's our announcements. I'm going to just scroll across and see if I have anything else for you. Nope, that's it for announcements. So I think our program is going to just kind of flow easily today, and we're going to wrap on time. I had Jennifer Alvey in recently, and we got talking. Same thing. I had Phil White. Phil White is a former president of the association. I had him in here a couple of weeks ago. And I'm like, well, Phil, it's quarter till. We got to wrap it up. And he's like, I'm only halfway through my notes.
I don't have any notes.
Actually, so I'll hit that for just a minute because it was a really fun moment. We'd been talking, and he and I started talking like you and I did, like half an hour before the show. And that just carried all the way through the show. And at like 11:45, we're like, all right, man, it's time to wrap up. He's like, I'm only halfway through my notes. I'm like, all right, you have dog hair. You have 1 minute to talk about any one thing from the notes that we didn't get to. And he just says, inflation.
Interesting.
Well, it is interesting because in our industry, and I've talked a lot about this in the last couple of weeks with our folks, we were planning to increase our rates for 2022. We do that every couple of years. We look at it every year, but we don't always raise our rates. We were planning a fairly substantial rate hike coming into the new year, and we got it all established. I went in behind the scenes and built out the new web pages that would apply to, and I'm like, we can't wait to do this.
Yeah.
Everything is costing nearly $5 a gallon for gas when I travel.
Yeah.
I was out on the interstate. We paid, I think, $4.59 a gallon of gas. Not for the premium stuff, just regular traveling stuff, right? And if I'm traveling for work, all of those factors, right? That's all the inflation that we're experiencing. Our food is costing more. All of those things are costing more. So anyway, his one word was inflation, and it's just in our industry, in the photography universe, pricing is one of the hardest things we do. Even when I had the retail store, pricing is okay. Well, if I price this too high, it might not sell. Like all of those concerns, right?
Yeah, you have to strike a balance.
I don't want to. Yeah, there's a balance to be struck, but there's much consternation over this very issue, especially because a lot of what we provide can be an intangible, and there's a lot that goes along with self-worth and some of those other things that go along with pricing a service business. Inflation was Phil's word, and the impetus there is that it nudges us towards understanding that you have self-worth, and that it's okay to raise your prices and charge what you're worth to be sustainable. And that would be my one word if I had to pick one. Like, what do you do for your business to make it sustainable? Okay, so that is going to have to be a topic coming up because I have a lot to say about that.
Yeah.
You can price yourself so low that you can work crazy hard and it feels really good at first. Anyway, I don't want to digress too much, but that's a big deal. So inflation was his word, and it was super, it resonated with me. So we published our 2022 prices weeks ago. And anyway, in some of the groups that I participate in, that's part of the conversation. Is you really don't have to wait. Everybody's experiencing price increases. You might as well be part of the game. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, okay, so that was totally an aside, but that was a free nugget, right? Whatever. So look, there's a few people on board with us today. I would love it, folks, if you would come in. Let me do the punch-in. You ready for the punch-in? You gotta lean in with me. Ready? Tell me who's here. If you're watching right now or anytime during the show, pop in to the comments here on YouTube. And
punch into the comments.
Punch into the comments like we punched in with the camera. I'm going to press this button and we're going to go back to normal. Ready?
Yeah.
3, 2, there we go. Let us know you're here. I bet LaQuita's watching. I bet Mike Collins is watching. And I wonder if your mama's watching.
Maybe.
Yeah. All right, so let's take a moment.
Sure.
And why don't you just tell my friends about who you are and what you do?
Okay, so I am Robert Ryder III.
I'm Junior, by the way.
Junior.
Don't ever.
I went to University of California, Davis and got a degree in genetics and genomics. And now I am a safety coordinator for a drywall company. They don't intersect much at all other than my experience in college being pivotal in learning how to learn for my job.
Oh, I have a quote for that.
Yes, you do.
So let's pop that. I was gonna save that for a little while, but it is MP2. We're gonna put it right up there. This is the quote. You said this to me years ago. Mm-hmm. You said, for me, college was about learning how to learn. And I thought, well, geez, that's saying something.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of folks will go to college and not choose a career path in the field that they've been educated in. Mm-hmm. And now you worked a little bit in the genetics and genomics while you were in school. In a
couple internships.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about that kind of an experience and how did it foster this lifetime learning that we're going to talk about as we get into the show?
So college was fun. It was a blast, as it should be. A lot of learning, a lot of studying, a lot of staying up too late. Not a lot of coffee because I don't drink caffeine very much. But most people have a lot of caffeine.
We differ in that regard. Yes, yes, we do. I suck caffeine sitting next to you.
But one of the key things that I learned in college was how to absorb knowledge in a digestible manner. It was a lot of information in a short amount of time. We were on the quarter system, so we do 3 quarters of learning, and then the summer would be the 4th quarter, and occasionally I took summer classes. That's where I met my girlfriend in one of the summer classes.
And you say girlfriend, but what you really mean is you've been together like
7 years.
7 years, okay. That's a whole interesting story in itself.
Yeah.
So you're on the quarter system. It's time consuming, right?
Yes.
And you worked through college.
Yes, I did. I worked as a laborer for the drywall company, scraping floors, picking up scrap, doing all the manual labor, exciting, fun things to clean up.
You actually really like that kind of work?
To a degree. I like it a few days a week, but doing it 5 days a week is pretty rough. And I did that during the summers. I actually did that some in high school as well. And it was really good money because I wasn't making minimum wage doing that. I was making fairly good money for a high school.
The contractor that you work for does a lot of jobs in the cities out west that require contractors to pay living wage, right?
Not quite. We don't do the union type stuff.
Okay.
I'm not sure about living wage things. But I mean, in high school, this was a bunch of years ago. I was making $13 an hour when minimum wage was around 8, I believe, 8 or 9. So it was pretty good money doing the manual labor thing. But it came a time, notably about 6 or so years back, if I'm remembering correctly, when California passed a crystalline silica standard. Basically, crystalline silica is fine silica dust that's in certain materials, drywall, concrete,
makeup,
and all of that stuff. And the respirable silica standard took the amount that was allowed in the air to be considered safe and lowered it by a lot. It was about 10% of the original considered safe value. And we needed someone to basically take this head on, and the safety coordinator position was created. And I took that up.
They gave you a car and said, "Here you go, college boy.
Yep.
You are now our safety engineer."
Yes. And the key there was we needed someone who could learn quickly. And just as these challenges, these safety challenges come up of, oh, we need to reach 25 feet on a scaffold because we can't get a scissor lift in there. How do you do that? How do you do that safely?
Wow.
How do you do that according to OSHA regulations, Cal OSHA regulations? Because California OSHA is separate than federal OSHA, and usually, not always, but usually has more stringent requirements than the regular OSHA does.
Yeah, there you go. So one of the things that I know about you
Yes.
is that you've always been a learner.
Always.
So some of my favorite memories going back to when you were in like 6th and 7th grade, we were visiting colleges. We were visiting universities. You remember visiting Stanford?
I do. It's a beautiful campus.
It's a beautiful campus. And you've always been into the learning aspects of things. And you took this challenge to develop the safety programs for the company head on. And you've embraced that. And I know that you've gone about learning a lot of different things.
Absolutely.
So like forklift operator.
Yes.
And you're train the trainer, right? Most of your classes are
yes.
not operator training, they're trainer training.
Yes.
Is that clear? Train the trainer? You know what I'm talking about?
That's actually what it says on my card. Train the trainer program.
Okay.
I teach all of our forklift. So anytime we get a new employee that we need on a forklift, I teach them how to operate one safely.
Do they get a certification out of that?
They do. Scissor lift is our most common certification. First aid CPR is another certification that I'm able to teach now as well. But not just teaching people.
We're not doing 15-2 anymore, are we?
No, they actually teach no breath.
So don't breathe for them, just pump.
Yep, just pump, because they realize that the time it takes for you to transition from chest compressions to breathing means you're not pumping blood with the heart.
Perfusing, right?
And that it kind of negates itself. So they limit the exposure to transmittable diseases
Is it still
and whatnot.
1 and 2 and 3 and 4? How is it now?
They usually, it's "Staying Alive," the song. Staying alive, staying alive.
Wow.
Yeah. You aim for about 100 beats per minute.
Wow, that's a lot.
It's very intense. If you were ever to have to perform CPR on someone, ideally you have multiple individuals trained because it's hard to go for more than a minute or two. One of the processes that we do to certify people is you have to maintain 100 beats per minute for a minute.
Wow.
And it usually whips people.
I would imagine
and
so.
generally, when someone needs CPR, it's not only for a minute. You have to.
Well, if your first responders are 3 to 5 minutes out,
Yep.
you're in for a long haul, and then they get there, and there has to be some dialogue, and so you're probably 6 to 7 minutes
At the very least.
before they get a machine on them that can do those compressions.
Yep.
Wow. So one of the things that I absolutely love in life is teaching, and passing what I know to other people, and some of the folks that are watching and will watch have participated in that. I love going into other environments. I love going into other professional environments like mine and learning how they do things. I find that fascinating, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So do you enjoy the instructional elements of what you do?
I do, quite a lot. And I get to play around with a lot of tools and things. We have all sorts of tools and equipment. And when something goes down, I'm the go-to guy to take a look at it, see if I can fix it.
We were just talking, we just yesterday had one of those moments where we repaired something
Yes.
that I had an easel where the leg wouldn't come out, right? This is not a big thing, but I like this little portable easel. It's very lightweight and it's very effective for
Very
what
convenient.
it does, right?
Yeah.
And I couldn't get the leg out. It was stuck. I tried lubricating it last week, and I tried pliers and stuff, and it just wasn't working for me. And it was in the rubbish bin. And you were standing next to me when we were working out here in the garage yesterday, and I'm like, try this, and you fixed it.
Yeah.
And you did what I'd been doing. You just did it harder, which is great.
Younger.
And stronger. And I'm cool with that, right? So, but one of the conversations that followed that was how our current generation tends to use disposable things. Oh, the easel's not working. I'm going to get another easel. And, we've grown to experience disposable cell phones and disposable computers. And it used to be you kept computers going by adding things to them. And it's just easier now to go get another $300 computer if you need to, or more, right?
Yeah.
So I love having that conversation yesterday where you told me you like to fix things.
I do.
And that's one of my attributes. I love, I've always loved working on equipment.
Mm-hmm.
So in my military days, we worked on electronic test equipment. We worked on radars and communications systems, communications equipment for Navy ships. Your mom used to repair teletypes. And I don't know if you've ever seen the inner workings of a teletype, but there are hundreds upon hundreds of tiny parts to make a teletype, lots of linkages and stuff.
That sounds like fun.
She was so good at it, right?
Yeah.
So you come by this fairly naturally.
Yes,
right?
I do.
And
one might say it's in my genetics.
very cool. Let's see what's going on over. We've got a couple of people. Bri is watching. Laquita is watching. I'm not sure who else is there. There's other numbers on the board. Folks, tell us a little bit about the things that you enjoy. Do you enjoy mending? You know, one of the things, here's a sleeper for you. This is something that only the people watching are going to know.
Mm-hmm.
I like to sew.
Yeah?
I bought a sewing machine. I'm not very good at it. I'd like to take a sewing class and learn to get better at it because I think it would benefit me from being able to create some things of my own. But I've done all of the mending in our household for close to 30 years because I used, you know, when you're deployed on a Navy ship for half a year or more, you fix the things that are not working.
Buttons fall off.
Yeah, buttons fall off, pants need mending, all those kinds of things. So anyway, tell us a little bit about the things that you enjoy fixing, whether it could be, you know, even there's, I suppose, parallels to preparing food, to enjoying cooking in the kitchen, to mending things in your household, to working with your equipment. And I know a lot of the people in our community, in the professional photographers community, some of these folks are strictly on the artist side of things, where they're like, the gear, it just gets me there. Like, I know how to use it, and that's what I do with it.
Yeah.
But let me know if you're one of those people that likes to fix things. And I was worried about tapping this mic because I'm gesturing a lot, and I'm not using this mic. We're using these mics. This one's the backup because these mics weren't doing so well to start with.
Nope, but we got it working.
We got it working, right?
Fix things.
All right, so, oh, Laquita. See, I didn't know that about you. Laquita does quilting and embroidery. Quilting is fabulous. Now, I grew up in a historic New England home. My mom's house, the house I grew up in, was built in the 1700s, and my
mom
mom
with a church pew.
It came with a church pew in the Baptist church right down the road. So as you know, my mom furnished that home with period antiques from the 16 to 1700s. So Laquita quilts were a part of my upbringing, historic antique quilts, and I love them to this day. So you'll have to show me some of that work. Maybe you should combine your love of photography and your love of quilting and take some pictures of the quilts that you've made. I would love to see that. That would be excellent, most excellent. And I happen to know that Laquita has a really great macro lens, so she could do some of that photography.
Excellent.
I know, because she bought mine.
Nice.
And honestly, I miss that lens.
Yeah?
I transitioned to a different camera system with a different lens mount. And I haven't replaced that one lens that Laquita now has. But I miss having that because it's so good for that purpose of taking pictures of the things that we do and see. All right, so tell me now, so we've talked about your college, and we've talked about work and certifications, and so they send you places, they send you to schools.
Yes, to learn. Every once in a while, whenever I need a new certification or my certifications expire, as they do, I go and hit up a class. There was a convention every year that is now online, unfortunately. But
was that a pandemic response?
Yep. It was usually in April. Okay. So it was right after the thing started.
Yep.
Can't remember the name off the top of my head, but it was basically a bunch of classes that you could sign up for, and they had all sorts of certifications and ladder training. One of the things that I hit up every year there was the heat illness, because that's such
Which
a
is a factor
big
for you
thing.
guys.
Absolutely, and it is one of the biggest things that I deal with on a yearly basis, is make sure guys have enough water, know enough to drink that much water, all that kind of stuff, and I make sure I hit that refresher every year. Not because it's required, but because it's always good to keep up on the latest trends and tips and tricks, and every instructor has their own little tidbits, like eating potassium if you get a lot of heat cramps. Carrots, bananas, potatoes, excellent for potassium, in addition to drinking enough water.
Carrots?
Carrots.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Potassium regulates the heart.
Yeah,
Yeah. So that's why it's important to keep it going, right?
certainly.
So in the absence of that in-person training, you said they're doing that online. Is that going to continue, or do you think that that was just a response to...
I'm not sure. They've had to coordinate all that stuff. They had some online courses this year, and they're all excellent, as always. They're taught by industry professionals of all kinds. I've learned from former fire... what are they called? Head of the fire department.
Fire chiefs?
Fire chiefs, former fire chiefs. There was one guy who responded to an airplane crash fire down in California. That was many years ago, and he went over that and all the safety things that were involved in that. He was the keynote speaker of that particular year. Great speech.
Did he talk about how you know if there's hazardous materials? Do you know how the firemen know there's hazardous materials, like a crashed big rig?
That's the placards, right?
No, they look for the first dead police officers.
Oh, no.
That's a bad joke, but it's from the industry, right? So
Yeah.
the cops usually respond to those things first, and
Yeah.
then they call the fire department, and then it's hazardous materials. Anyway, that's a terrible joke. It probably doesn't come off sounding right out of context.
Yeah.
But, and I'm a retired cop, so that's not it's not a slant on us police officers. Anyway, it's supposed to be a thing. She says, my friend Laquita says, I love that lens. And she'll take some photos and show me. I would love that, Laquita. That'd be great. So let's take this conversation and talk about, so we've talked about college education. And so let me ask you this question. And I didn't prime this question. He doesn't know this is coming. So I don't know what his answer is going to be. That's the most important part.
That's exciting.
Would it take a college degree to do the job that you're doing?
I don't think so. I think it takes the right mindset. A willingness to learn is not something that you necessarily have to have college for. It definitely helps in college, because if you're not willing to learn in college, you don't do so well. And just a passion for learning is always good. And if you have that, that drives itself.
Okay.
The more you want to learn, the more you end up learning. And the more you know that you don't know.
That is absolutely true, and that applies universally across every facet of everything that we do as human beings. The more you know what you didn't know.
Yeah.
And a lot of times you simply don't know
what you don't
know.
Yes, exactly.
You'll see this if you follow any of the very colorful Facebook conversations about politics, or about a lot of other things. But in our industry, there's a young lady who I adore in our community, actually lives in our neighborhood close by, and she's a young photographer fresh out of high school, and she's very talented. She has fantastic compositional, composition, you can learn it, but a lot of folks just have composition as a natural part of what they do. She's got that, right? And I've tried to offer her some educational opportunities. She's not really interested. She simply doesn't know what she doesn't know, right?
Yeah.
Laquita is a friend of mine who has just plowed into educational opportunities and seeks them out and has learned so much and really come a long way with your skills, Laquita. I talk about her a lot because she's always on our live.
Yeah.
And she sat here in the studio with me, and we've had lots of great conversations together in that regard. But that's that not knowing part, not knowing what you don't know, or learning what you then recognize as something you didn't know.
Yes, exactly.
So to develop that a little bit for me. So I keep going back. So we started with this college education, and I queued this up to be able to slide back over to this quote, because it has really stuck with me for a lot of years. That for you, college was about learning how to learn, and you've carried that into your current career.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So more on that. High school was always really easy for me, and I didn't really need to apply myself a lot to do very well. College was different. I got a...
Because you were learning about genetics, dude.
Yeah. A rude awakening. I started as a chemistry major, and I took chemistry in my first year of college and didn't do so great. And I was like, oh, this is not what I'm used to. And I realized that I needed to put more effort into knowing how to absorb information. Something that my girlfriend Emma, she's excellent at, is memorizing and learning. She's way better at it than I am.
Memorizer.
Oh yeah, she's excellent.
I struggle with memorizing.
But
I avoid it.
yeah, she's really good at learning how to learn, and she kind of, opened my eyes a little bit towards that in my junior year of like, wow, this is someone who knows how they learn, and that's another thing.
Big part of it
is I learn very differently than she does. I'm a doer. You're probably a doer as well.
Totally a doer.
Emma,
don't tell me how to do it. Show me how to do it.
Yes, exactly.
Let me do it. Don't do it for me.
Yep.
Let me do it.
Exactly.
Let me make that mistake. So one of the things that I know about myself is if I understand how or why something works, I can fix it.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah. Like driving. When I was learning to drive, I had been around the town that I lived in, Antelope, California, for a long time, and been driven everywhere by my parents. And I didn't know how to get anywhere until I got in the car and started driving. And that's usually how it goes. If I can, look on a map and see places, and it goes right over my head until I actually physically get in the car and go there.
Okay. I'm a map guy. I love a map because that's the I know how it works part, right? But I'm a visual learner too. Like, here's a great example. Bri will tell me about the meals we're going to have for the week.
Yeah.
Right? And it's not that I don't listen, it's just that's not how I learn. So we've, 26 years into this marriage, she just hands it to me on the paper like this is what we're going to do this week for groceries, or this is what we're going to do this week for our calendar, or this is what we're going to do this week for meals. And she'll talk through it while I'm looking at it. But I've got to see it.
Yeah.
If I don't see it, there's no hope for the future.
Yeah, it can organize that way by just seeing it on paper. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We actually organize our meals very similarly, where it's written down on the weekly basis. And they shuffle around, but seeing it on the paper on the fridge really helps me remember.
Yeah, I was showing you our Trello board for our family meal planning, and it helps with. Anyway, I use Trello for a lot of things. A lot of folks that watch know that I use Trello for a lot of things, and I was sharing that with you when we were just kind of talking this last week. But all right, so now we've been through college, and you've been in this job for a few years.
Yeah.
How long have you been out of college?
Like
5 years?
5 or 6 years.
5 or 6 years.
Around there.
Post college, working as in the safety position. And I would say that you've established yourself well.
Very well.
People understand what you do and what to expect. Tell me about opportunities to learn that you run into on the daily.
So construction is very fluid, in that there's the way things are built, and a lot of times you send your guys out to go build stuff, and oh no, they haven't backfilled the concrete, and there are just trenches on the job site. What do? Well, you got to work around it because you can't stop, but you have to do so safely. You don't want a guy putting their foot in a trench and breaking his leg. So I have to figure out on the fly a lot of things like that, of situations that arise, or someone's work is in our way and now we have to get around a pipe and it's 6 foot up and there's only 6 inch clearance, all that kind of stuff. And construction is not a very safety cultured industry as a stereotype, and a lot of people who've been in the industry for a long time are just like, well, I'll just stand on top of the scissor lift rails, and that's not safe. So I have to.
You're not going to do that.
Yeah, I have to be the guy that comes in and sees these things before they happen, and make a plan to do something safely. Tie off to that, or use a different system here. Get someone to scaffold this professionally. All that kind of stuff.
I would imagine there's a fair amount of what we would refer to as ad hoc.
Yes. Yes. Yep. Less so on my end, but yeah.
So how do you find the balance between, as we say, getting shit done?
Yeah.
And putting the brakes on and finding a different way to do things? Like, is there a way that, well, I'll let you answer the question.
Yeah, so there's definitely a balance. Always safety first, because if someone gets hurt, then you have to tell their loved ones that I was the one who was in charge of their safety, and they weren't safe. Even if it's something that I've told them a million times to do and they don't do, I'm still responsible for whatever they do on the job site. Even if they completely ignore me, it's my job to be on top of that and to be on top of them to do those things. And most guys are really good about it. But every once in a while, something needs to get done that day, and I have to figure out a solution that works, that is safe, that is within Cal OSHA standards, very rapidly, because you can't slow down production.
Because you got to get shit done.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, exactly. This wall needs to be built today. It needs to be sheetrock today, and there's stuff in the way. What do you do?
Stuff in the way. Just break out the Sawzall, man. My friend Laquita says, Young Bob's job is very interesting. I think so too, and I think, Laquita, that knowing his background, knowing his college and the internship, you were doing genetic work with tomatoes.
Yes.
So by genetics, I think a lot of people jump to human cloning, human genetics, and things like that. But genetics, there's genetics involved in agriculture.
Everything.
And lots of interesting things, right?
So I worked with tomatoes, and
I worked with tomatoes. I don't know anybody else that can say that besides a farmer, right? I'm in tomatoes.
I love tomatoes. It is one of my favorite smells on the planet. It was just a little greenhouse that the grad student that I interned for had tomatoes, and we were doing various amounts of different minerals in solution to see what grew tomatoes best. And one would think, oh, tomatoes, they've been around for a while. We know how to grow tomatoes. But even in that, it is constantly evolving, constantly learning. And what we did, so genetics is a more broad scope. If anyone knows who Mendel is, he did the experiments with the peas, cross-pollinate, and now this pea is wrinkly, and this pea is white flower, etc.
I don't know anybody that knows those things, but maybe I'm wrong. You know those things.
He's one of my heroes. Mendel is excellent. He's the grandfather of genetics. Basically taking two things, mating them, and seeing what offspring it produces.
Oh, that's interesting.
So most people know dominant and recessive eye colors. So if you know certain eye colors are more dominant than others. So if your father has certain color eyes and your mother has another color, you may end up with one or the other, depending on, and very occasionally you'll end up with something that neither of them have as a recessive trait. Mendel was the guy who figured all that out. Genetics is kind of seeing things from a human perspective of if I take these two plants, say agriculture, and I take all the corn that grows the most and produces the most corn, and I take those seeds and I plant them, and I continually do that, corn will become more and more
bigger, better, stronger, faster.
Exactly. Whereas the genomic side,
so that applies.
Yeah.
I don't want to derail this because so put a mark right there. The genetic side.
Okay.
Okay. That concept of taking the biggest and fostering that applies to our business. Okay. It applies to our industry. It applies to most businesses actually. And there's a great book called The Pumpkin Plan that talks about if you cultivate.
Cultivate's a great word.
The biggest pumpkins and eliminate the trash pumpkins.
Yeah.
You're going to grow big pumpkins. That's how you grow award-winning pumpkins.
Genetics 101 right there.
So, but that applies to the business. If you cultivate your best clients and give them the best experience, instead of trying to fix the broken clients or the bad clients, then you're going to grow, you're going to cultivate more of the good clients.
Yeah.
Because you're dedicating more time towards them, and that fosters more good clients of that nature.
Yep.
Because good clients tend to have good quality friends and colleagues.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to your mark.
All right. So that's the genetic side. Very applicable to everyday life. You can see it everywhere you go. It's agriculture. It's people. They have genetic counselors nowadays to if you have genetic diseases that run in your family.
Which we do.
Yeah, exactly.
We have polycystic kidney disease, autosomal dominant.
Yep, means it is inherited. They can look at your family histories and tell you the rough odds, or even the exact odds, if you have enough family history, of what diseases will be passed on to your children.
That's wild.
Genomics, on the other side, is a more microscopic view of the same principles. It is looking at the actual DNA of something, which is what we did with the tomatoes. We grew them, we saw which ones grew the best, but we also took samples of the leaves, put them in a little bit of dry ice, liquid nitrogen, and froze them, sent them to a lab that were crushed, and the DNA was analyzed, and we could actually look at the entire DNA of these plants and seeing, the measurements of, okay, these ones were so many more, centimeters taller than the average. What is in the genetic code different between the two?
And how did we do that?
And
so I'm going to take that and apply it to our industry. So one of the things that I enjoy doing on our show, and in a lot of conversations that I have with folks in my industry, is how do you look outside the industry to bring something in that isn't here? Mm-hmm. Because if we continuously just work from what's within our industry, mm-hmm. we're not creating anything new.
Yeah.
Right?
You have to have new and fresh ideas.
Right. So then how can you take, and it could be your client experience, it could be your pricing structure, it could be your workflow. There's a lot of different places you could apply this. How could you crush that and analyze it and figure out what works and what doesn't, and what your experience is that concept. You do a thing mm-hmm. and measure it. Yeah. Right? And see what the result is. And that's so important for us in our industry, to take time, even I'm going to talk to Laquita because I know she's still here. Even for a moment, just looking at what education you decide to take. Yeah. And measuring its effectiveness. Now, I have a program coming up that I've signed up for. It's offered through Professional Photographers of America. It's coming up in a week or two. And it's a 1-hour webinar on architectural photography. Mm-hmm. I do architectural photography. So this is really pertinent to me. I'm going to look and see what ideas they can offer me mm-hmm. towards this skill base that I've got, towards this product that I offer my client, to see what I can improve. But it wouldn't benefit me to go take a course on working with brides or working with, pick anything that is something that I don't do. Mm-hmm. There's always something you'll glean, but it doesn't have that kind of that magnifying effect, that compounding effect, that looking closely at something that you do and figuring out how to make that go better. But that's what you just explained to me. Yeah.
Actually, one of the prime principles of genomics is when you look at that DNA, you see gobbledygook, basically.
That's what it would be to me.
And we don't know what any of that means until we break it. You irradiate stuff or blast a plant with radiation by some means, destroy its genetic code in a certain way, see what's broken, and then you can see what on the plant didn't work. So if you compare a healthy plant to one where you broke a specific gene and all of a sudden now it doesn't produce flowers, you know that gene controls something to do with flowers. Or if it no longer deposits pigment in the flowers and they are just colorless, then you can find genes that way.
Who knows this stuff? He does.
Yeah, he knows that's how we figure out on a genomic level what genes do. Is we look at a regular example and then we compare it to, genomics is all about comparisons, to something that's broken. And applying to the photography angle is if you look at what you're doing and you figure out what are some other things that other people are doing and what are some of the things that you're doing that are less successful, you can find what is broken or what needs fixing within your own.
I participate in a group about making money with photography. And that is the theme, right? So it sounds, if you were not in context with this, talking about a group that's all about making money with photography, a lot of folks would be like, well, I'm an artist. Mm-hmm. Oh, great, good for you.
Artists can make money too.
Right. It has to be sustainable, right?
Yep.
Like I can't be the artist if I can't feed my family, right? I have to go do something else that isn't being the artist, right? So I participated in this group, and we are always looking at those metrics. Like, I did this. I did this to my pricing model, and it was not successful.
Yeah.
Or I did this to my pricing model, and I doubled my income.
That's the exact same thing as genomics.
Applied,
not to DNA.
Maybe to economics, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Fascinating.
Same principles.
Fascinating. So we are out of time.
Wow.
We are there at 11:44. So I'm going to pull out this trick that I laid with Phil a few weeks ago and say 1 minute to talk about any aspect of daily learning.
Okay.
Putting you on the spot.
Yeah. So I've actually had this example in my brain brewing. You mentioned earlier sewing. You like sewing and quilting as well. I actually learned how to sew in my internship. And that is not something I went into a genomics internship about tomatoes expecting to learn. But I needed it to sew little bags for the seeds to be put into. And as long as you're willing to see those opportunities in daily life, doesn't matter what you're doing, you can learn something that is a life skill or just a fun skill, and you can draw that out of anything. So
this is the point where I pop the flare up and send it, and it lights everything up, because you just hit probably the most important thing that we could have said through this whole conversation, is that there are learnable moments everywhere. In the grocery store, I was at Soul Nutrition, to throw that out here this morning. They hosted our first Friday business networking event for the Meridian Chamber this morning. They're on Overland Road. If you haven't been in Soul Nutrition, go see those people. They've got a great product. They've got a great storefront. And I'm there looking for learnable moments. And I'm there looking for connections. And I'm there looking for relationships and friendships. And I got talking to the owner. And she has a store in Nampa, which, for you're not from here, Nampa's about 20 minutes down the road. And she lives in Star, and she has a store in Meridian, and now she's opening another one in Cuna. And I said, how? How do you do that? Well, I kind of know the answer. You do that by finding terrific human beings to run those businesses, and then you float between them. But that was my learnable moment today at my business networking, was talking to this business owner, a just vibrant, super cool gal with lots of energy and a vision for what she wants to do with her business, and just opening up and just listening to what she has to say about that. Very cool. Robert? It's been a blessing to have you on our show today. Folks, that is the end of our show today. I'm going to come back and just hit this one announcement slide, because I want you to be there next week with us. I want you to be able to plan for it. Let's pop that up.
Is that the one on December 10th?
It is December 10th. It is our monthly PPI luncheon. We normally do it on the first Friday. That would be today. Our whole board wasn't able to make this today, so we're going to push that out 1 week to December 10th at Idaho Pizza on Fairview in Meridian. And we hope you'll join us. You don't have to be a member of our organization to pop into these luncheons and meet us. This is actually probably the lowest stress way to meet our organization and talk to some of our members and start building relationships in the organization. And then I'm going to pop another slide up here real quick. Give me just a second. Sorry to look away, but that's where my stuff is. I'm going to talk about Professional Photographers of Idaho. We are a membership organization. We are a nonprofit. We are your state affiliate of Professional Photographers of America. I'm going to try another thing here. Let's see if I can put me in the corner. We are the state affiliate for Professional Photographers of America. PPI has been around for like 60 years. Okay, and we have an incredible body of talent represented in our membership. Everybody from the mom with the camera, or the dad with the camera, or the friend with the camera, all the way up through folks who have decades of working professional experience. It's incredible. And that has been my sole takeaway, not the sole takeaway. It has been one of my biggest takeaways, is the relationships that I've built within this organization. Folks, ppofidaho.com, hit that Join Us tab, $10 a month with a 12-month commitment, or $100 a year. It's actually just a little bit less than that. It's the $99.99 thing or whatever. Take a look at that. Join us. Come alongside and get into the professional community and learn with us. All right? So, folks, that's about what I have for you today. I'm going to put our outro slide on. I'll just leave that. And we'll say goodbye right here.
All right.
All right. We'll see you next week. Oh, I'll see you next week. He'll be back to work in California. Take care.
Have a good week.